So we're going to start our linear functions review unit, and we're going to start that by talking about slope. If you remember, slope describes the steepness of a line. We can think of it as rise over run. The change in y over the change in x. y1 minus y2 is our slope formula over x1 minus x2. And there are 4 different kinds of slope. We have negative slope, positive slope, we have zero slope when we have a horizontal line, and we have undefined. When we have a vertical line. So the first thing we're going to review is to find slope from a table. So here's my first table. And to find our slope, we're going to find the change in y and put it over the change in x. So here's our change in y. We are adding 2 to go from one to the next. 2 plus 2 is 4. 4 plus 2 is 6. So we have a constant change in the y's. Let's check our x's. To go from -1 to 0, we're adding 1. From 0 to 1 is plus 1. And 1 from 2 to 2 is plus 1 also. So what's our change in y over our change in x? The change in y is positive 2. The change in x is positive 1. So our slope is 2 divided by 1, or 2. My other or second example So take a look at our changes in y. From 20 to 16, I am subtracting 4. From 16 to 8, I'm subtracting 8. So this is not the same number here. It may not be linear. 8 minus 4, or from 8 to 4, I am subtracting 4. So that is my change in y. Now let's look at our change in x. From 3 to 6 goes up 3. From 6 to 12 goes up 6. And from 12 to 15 goes up 3 again. So when we explore these changes in y's over the change in x, let me look at this first one. So take a look at this. I have a change in y of -4 over 3. What if I look at the other one? How about this one? I have a change in y of -8 over 6. So here's where our calculator comes in handy. So I have -4 divided by 3, and I get that. Or I can use my fraction operation, -4 over 3, and what do I get? I get the same thing back. What about -8 over 6? I get the same thing. So no matter whether it's -4 over 3 or -8 over 6, I still get the same thing. Okay. The next part is finding slope from a graph. So to do that, we need to pick 2 points, 2 integer points on the grid on our graph to count or find slope. You can pick any 2 points, it does not matter. So remember, it is rise over run. Okay, so I'm going to rise what? 1, 2, 3, 4. And then I'm going to go over for my run 1, 2 spaces. 4 divided by 2 is 2. So that is my slope for this line. Do not forget, it doesn't matter which 2 points. If I pick these points, 1, 2, and then I go over 1, that is 2 divided by 1, which also gives me 2. So it's the same no matter what. Looking at my next example, I'm again looking for my points on the grid. You can't use any of these. I really only have 2 here. So what's my rise? I'm going actually not up, but I'm going down 1 space. So for my rise over my run, I'm going down 1. And then I go over 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. What was that? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Yes, 6 spaces. I run over 6 spaces. And notice, back to the first example, my line is going up. My slope should be positive. Here, my line is going in the downward direction. That is a negative slope. So I'm making that a -1 over 6 for my slope. You could also look at it this way. And instead of going up, I went down and over. Since I went down, I could count that as a -1. Okay, now let's look at my bottom 2 examples. Here, I can pick many points. I notice that this is a vertical line, so I should know automatically what the slope is. But if you don't, it's a vertical line. If you don't, you can still count. So, what is my rise? Say I go from this point to this point. I'm going to rise up 1. Now, how much do I go over? I go over nothing. 1 divided by 0. If you remember, you can never divide by 0. Here I'm going to use my calculator app that I downloaded, and you can download if you want to. And we said it was going to be, oops, I don't want that, 1 divided by 0. Okay, if I put enter, What does it say? Error, divide by 0. I cannot divide by 0. So this slope is undefined. Okay, so remember, this is a vertical line. It always has undefined slope. This one over here is a horizontal line, so you may already know what the slope is. You should. If not, again, pick 2 points. So what's my rise to go up or down? Nothing. I rise, nothing. And then I count over 1, 2, 3. What is 0 divided by 3? 0. My slope is 0. And the last way we are going to find slope is with 2 points. Okay, so for my first example, my 2 points are -12, -10, and 0, -6. And I'm going to use my formula. So let's make sure I put my y's on the top. So here are my y's. Okay, so my y's, I'm going to put -10 and -6. And then for my x values, I have -12 and 0. Okay, what does this give me? -10 plus 6. Again, type this into the calculator, and I get -4. -12 minus 0 is just -12. And when I simplify that, I have a 1/3. Here's another example. 0, 7. Oops, didn't mean to do that. And -5, 11. All right. So again, I'm subtracting my y's over my x's. I'm subtracting and subtracting. So what are my y's? 7 and 11. And what are my x's? 0 and -5. So what happens here? 7 minus 11 is -4. 0 minus the -5 is a +5. And that does not simplify. You can put it in your calculator to find out. So there's my slope for that one. And let's do one more. Let's do -2, -1, and -2, +1. Subtract my y's over my x's. So here are my y's, -1 and 1. And here are my x's, -2 and -2. So what happens here? -1 minus 1 gives me -2. -2 minus a -2, that turns to plus. So that is going to be 0. And again, I cannot divide by 0. That gives me an undefined. slope.